Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivanadari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradari Solanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasolanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradari Solanandana Brajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Jayam Vishnupad, Panamahanksar Parijakacharya, Asatir Sadashishimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Ananda Gauda Vaishnava Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Prime Sikha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopya Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Shri Maya Purnavadam Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Somaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Transcend Book Distribution Ki Jai, Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Go Premanandi, all glorious some of the devotees, all glorious some of the devotees, all glorious some of the devotees, all glorious Shri Shri Guru, Shri Gauranga. Today is Bhismastami, appearance day of Bhishma, great devotee of Krishna. He's one of the Mahajans, right? Yeah. Yeah. Swayambhur Narada Sambhu Kumara Kapila Manu Palada Janako Bhismo Balir Vayasakir Vayam. He was the son of
Shantanu.
What was his name?
Shantanu Maharaj.
Shantanu, King Shantanu. And there was one period where he was attracted to this lady, Saraswati. And he wanted to marry her. So he went to the father, who was a fisherman, and said, I'd like to marry your daughter. He said, no, because your son will be the king and not my grandson. So he was a little surprised. He was the king. So, but he wouldn't give in. So he was a little depressed. Shantanu Maharaj, a little depressed, anxiety. And his name was Devavrata before being named Bhishma. So he noticed that his father was a little depressed, and others noticed, and the ministers noticed, and he went to the minister and said, well, why is my father so distraught? And they explained. So Devavrata went to the father of Saraswati and said, it's okay. What did he say? He said that I won't accept the throne. He said, I won't accept the throne. So your grandson, he'll accept the throne. And still he rejected, because your son will become the king. And then Devaraja said, then I won't marry. And as soon as he said that, unembodied voice said, your name is Bhishma. Bhishma means terrible vow. Because the pleasure of sex, this is like the heavenly pleasure. So to take a vow to be celibate throughout one's life, it's considered a horrible vow. Bhishma. So then Bhishma, when he told his father that you can marry Saraswati, it's okay, I've taken a vow of celibacy. So his grandson will be a king. And when his father heard this, he said he was so surprised and happy. And he said, you'll only die when you desire to die. So therefore Bhishma, even though he was on the bed of arrows, it's described that there were so many arrows that you couldn't put your finger in between the arrows. There were so many arrows. He was laying on this bed of arrows. They had gone through him. He was still alive. And then he spoke wisdom to Yudhisthira and the Pandavas. A huge portion of the Mahabharata is Bhishma's teaching. Just to give you an idea, he spoke for a long time on a bed of arrows. Pretty amazing, huh? This is why he's one of the Mahajans, great soul. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we're reading from the Srimad-Bhagavatam 5:13:6. Kvachit Bitoya Savito Biyati Parasparam Chalasate Narandha Asadya Dhavam Kvachit Agni Tapto Nirvidyate Kva Cha Yakshar Patashu Kvachit Bitoya Savito Biyati Parasparam Chalasate Narandha Asadhyanavam Kvachit Agni Tapto Nirvidyate Kvachat Yakshar Hitasuhu Kvachit Vitoya Savito Biyati Parasparam Chalasate Nirandha Asadhyadavam Kvachit Agni Tapto Nirvidyate Kvachat Yakshar Vitasuhu Kvachit Vitoya Savito Biyati Parasparam Chalasate Nirandha Asadhyadavam Kvachit Agni Tapto Nirvidyate kvachat yakshirdasahu. Kuchvitoya savito biyati parasparam jalasatena vrindaha asadyadhavam kuchiragnitaktam nirvidyate kvachat yakshirdasahu. Asadyadhavam kuchit agnitapto nirvidyate kvachat yakshiradasu. Vachvitoya sarito vyati Anyone on the Zoom?
Kvachidritiya sarito bhiyati parasparam chalasate nirandha
Parasparam chalasate nirandha
asadhyadavam kvachidagnitanto nirvidyate kvatyakshehatasu.
Kuchit. Sometimes. Vitoyaha. Without depth to water. Saritaha. Rivers. Abhiyati. He goes to bathe or jumps into. Parasparam. One another. Cha. And alasate. Desires. Nirandha, being with no stock of food. Asadya, experiencing. Dhavam, a forest fire in family life. Kuchit, sometimes. Agnitapta, burned by fire. Nirvidyate, is despondent. Kwa, somewhere. Cha, and yakshai, by kings resembling rogues and thieves. Prita, taken away. Ashu, wealth, which is as dear as one's life. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki. Sometimes the conditioned soul jumps into a shallow river, or being short of food grains, he goes to beg food from people who are not at all charitable. Sometimes he suffers from the burning heat of household life, which is like a forest fire, and sometimes he becomes sad to have his wealth, which is as dear as life, plundered by kings in the name of heavy income taxes. When one is hot due to the scorching sun, one sometimes jumps into a river to gain relief. However, if the river is almost dried up and the water is too shallow, one may break his bones by jumping in. The conditioned soul is always experiencing miserable conditions. Sometimes his efforts to get help from friends are exactly like jumping into a dry river. By such actions, he does not derive any benefit. He only breaks his bones. Sometimes suffering from a shortage of food, one may go to a person who is neither able to give charity nor willing to do so. Sometimes one is stationed in household life, which is compared to a forest fire, some sort of dhavan alalita loka. When a man is heavily taxed by the government, he becomes very sad. Heavy taxation obliges one to hide his income, but despite this endeavor, the government agents are often so vigilant and strong that they take away all the money, and the condition so becomes very aggrieved. Thus people are trying to become happy within the material world, but this is like trying to be happy in a forest fire. No one need go to a forest fire or to a forest to set it ablaze. Fire takes place automatically. Similarly, no one wants to be unhappy in family life or worldly life, but by the laws of nature, unhappiness and distress are forced upon everyone. To become dependent on another's maintenance is very degrading. Therefore, according to the Vedic system, everyone should live independently. Only the Sudras are unable to live independently. They are obliged to serve someone for maintenance. It is said in the Shastras, Kalo Sudra Sambhava. In this age of Kali, everyone is dependent on another's mercy for the maintenance of the body. Therefore, everyone is classified as a Sudra. In the 12th Canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, it is said that in Kali-yuga, the government will levy taxes without reciprocally benefiting the citizens. Anāvṛṣṭyā vinaṅkṣyanti durbhikṣa-kara-pīḍitāḥ. In this age, there will also be a shortage of rain. Therefore, a scarcity of food will arise, and the citizens will be very much harassed by government taxation. In this way, the citizens will abandon their attempts to lead a peaceful life, and will leave their homes and hearths and go to the forest in sheer disappointment. Om Jnanatamandasya Giranjana Salakaya Taksham Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Mukam Krotavachalam Pangum Lunghayate Karim Yat Kripa Taraham Bande Shikarum Dinataranam Vanchakalpatribhyascha Kripa Sindhuvdevacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. There's many good points here in this purport and verse that we'll go through. Here it's mentioned that the conditioned soul sometimes experiences unbearable grief. Says sometimes they jump into a river that's too shallow, and they sometimes break their bones. There's one instance of a young girl. She was about maybe 8 years old in New Zealand, and they were swimming, and she did just this. She jumped into a body of water. It was too shallow, and she was completely paralyzed. To this day, she's paralyzed. But she's an amazing devotee. She distributes books. She loves to distribute books. She goes out in her wheelchair. She's able to move, with her fingers. And she's an artist. She draws with her teeth. And she sells a lot of these postcards, because it's mentioned that the person that's drawing this, she's disabled. She draws these with her teeth. Beautiful art. Amazing. And that's how the family maintains her artwork. And she distributes books. Very nice devotee. So there's devotees that are in situations that would be considered unbearable. Just like there's so many devotees that had cancer. Very painful. But they were completely Krishna conscious. They would just hear Prabhupada's lectures and chant Hare Krishna, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, he was suffering from this cancer, and he asked Radha Swami to stay with him for the period until he left his body. And he told Radha Swami, it can't get any better than this. Because he was just absorbed in Krishna. You know, sometimes like he was a traveling preacher, but he would manage all these GVCs, so he didn't manage a lot. So it could be, it can sometimes be a headache in management. Most of us haven't had that experience. But he had that experience. So he was just absorbed in Krishna. Absorbed in Krishna. Although it was a very painful cancer, he was happy. It couldn't get any better than this. Many examples of devotees in situations like that where they were feeling so much pain bodily, but because they were Krishna conscious, they were experiencing great happiness. Yeah. Material happiness is external. Spiritual happiness is internal. Yonta sukha tarara tatancha joytrevya. One whose happiness is within, who is active and rejoices within, and whose aim is inward, is understood to be liberated. So this is the real happiness, this internal Krishna consciousness. I'm reading this book now, Bonds of Love, I think. Prabhupada and his lady disciples. It's pretty amazing. There's this one Mataji. She was listening to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was speaking about this, about in the material world there's a lot of happiness and distress. But devotees, because they're serving Krishna, they experience so much happiness. And so this devotee, this Mataji, she said, well, after the talk, she said, well, Prabhupada, but I also experience distress. You know, I experience happiness, but there's also distress. Is that also coming from Krishna? And Prabhupada said, yes. He said, just like the chataka bird. The chataka bird only accepts rain, or only accepts water from the cloud, only rain. So the chataka bird is praying to the cloud for rain, because that's how they get their water. So the rain sometimes comes, and sometimes there's thunderbolt. And when he said thunderbolt, he said, he went like that to the Mataji. Sometimes there's a thunderbolt. And she was like a little shocked. So this is also, so the distress is also coming from Krishna, yeah, which is also to help us grow. And therefore this verse that Prabhupada said is the guide for all devotees of Krishna. Who knows the verse? Tattena kampang susamiksamano bunjane vapvikritam vipakam Ridvak purvir viridham namaste Jiveta yamukti pade sadayavaka. This is a prayer by Lord Brahma. Always seeking your compassion, thus tolerating all difficulties as being due to his own past activities, and always serving you with his mind, body, and word, such a devotee is eligible to inherit the kingdom of God. So distress is welcome by a devotee, and therefore Queen Kunti, she prays for calamity. Please, Krishna, give me calamity again and again and again. Because when calamity comes, I'm able to think of you, and by thinking of you, I get purified, and I go back home, back to Godhead. So this is welcome by a devotee. And the devotee thinks, actually I deserve much worse. But Krishna, he's so kind, he's giving me this little token of punishment from what I actually deserve. So the devotee just feels it as the kindness of Krishna. Krishna is very kind. Sometimes it's difficult to see how it's the kindness of Krishna when one is in difficulty. But we have to see the whole picture. This is called the fire of ordeal. Just like if you want to get pure ghee from butter, you put it on fire. And as the fire is boiling the butter, the impurities come out. So in this fire of ordeal of engaging in devotional service and accepting austerities, impurities come out. And eventually, you just have a pure devotee. That's the goal. So therefore, this austerity is very good. Nayang deho dehabhajam naloke kastam kaman arhate vidvijanya. Tapo divyang putikayena satam sudyad yasmad brahmasokyam tvanantam. That Lord Rishabhdev, he says that persons who have accepted the human form of life shouldn't waste their time engaging in the same activities of the animals, eating, sleeping, mating, defending. But they should engage in austerity. And from this austerity, one attains transcendental happiness. So austerity is very good. It's called the wealth of the brahmanas. Austerity is the wealth of the brahmanas. Very nice. And this is the wealth. It's actually a treasure to be able to engage in austerity for the pleasure of Krishna. Because this is the opportunity, this is the best opportunity for purification. And this is what we want. That's why we're here. We're in these temples are kind of like hospitals where we're coming to get better again. So this is one of the treatments for becoming healthy again, austerity. So here in this purport, Prabhupada mentions that sometimes because of shortage of food, he begs, but unable to get what he wants, he's not satisfied. And he gives the example of a Hindu who was hungry, and he went to a Muslim. Hindus don't go to Muslim. Hindus go to a Brahmana. They eat with other Hindus or Brahmanas. But he went to a Muslim to get food, and after eating, he was not satisfied. And he said, "Oh," he lamented, "I've lost my caste, and still I'm hungry." Yeah. So, yeah. People engage in so many sinful activities, but still they're dissatisfied. It's like recently I heard of an instance where a couple of devotees, they living in the temple doing service, but they just on kind of like a whim, they went out and they got intoxicated. And then they told the temple authorities that this had happened. And they asked them to leave because they had broken the principles. And then they were going around trying to stay at other temples, and they would say, "Well, is there any reference? Were you staying at another temple?" And they would tell them, "Yeah, we stayed in this particular temple." And then they'd investigate and find out, and, "Oh, I'm sorry, you can't stay here. You've broken the principles." So it's a pretty... Of course, Prabhupada wasn't so strict like that. If someone broke the principles, he'd give them another chance. Yeah. And sometimes he'd give them many chances. Prabhupada was very kind. But this goes to show how strict this movement is. To break the principles, it's very inauspicious. But they did that, and then they experienced so much frustration and dissatisfaction after that. So this is the result of trying to enjoy in this world. We become frustrated. So therefore it's stated in the Shastra, Hlada tapakari mishra, that whatever we try to enjoy in this world, it'll be mixed with pain. It'll be mixed. You're not going to get pure pleasure in this material world. In the spiritual world, it's pure pleasure, pure ghee. pure pleasure in the spiritual world. Here, you get a little pleasure, pain is going to come along with it. Just like it's mentioned here in this verse that household life is compared to a forest fire. Yeah. And it's even mentioned here, who would want to live in you can't live in a forest fire. But household life can be compared to that because, you get married and you think it's just going to be very nice, right? That's the initial idea. It's going to be nice and have a nice wife, nice children, or nice husband, nice children, and we'll go on in Krishna consciousness. But so many things happen. It's like a blazing fire. And therefore it's mentioned in samsara dhavan alalila loka, that the spiritual master is extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. So that blazing fire is also within our heart. That desire for material enjoyment, it's burning in the heart. And the spiritual mastery comes to extinguish this blazing fire of material existence. But sometimes we get in the way. We want to enjoy. We want to enjoy this material world. We don't want to serve Krishna. We want Maya. And so we get in the way of the spiritual master and Krishna's endeavor to extinguish this blazing fire of material existence. So Prabhupada said we have to analyze the trap, Maya, and escape. We have to analyze the trap. Maya is very expert at trapping the living entity. Yeah. And Krishna explains the trap. Dhyayato visyang pungsang sangasya jayate kama kama krurado. It's a tongue twister for me. Krishna says, while contemplating the objects of the senses, one develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, lust develops. From lust, anger. From anger, bewilderment of memory. When the memory is bewildered, the intelligence is lost. And when the intelligence is lost, one falls down again in the material pools. So this is where it begins. This is the beginning of the trap. While contemplating the objects of the senses, one becomes attached to them. So we got to avoid that. So we become attracted. Just like, it's natural that boys attract a girl, girls attract to the boy. But know that this is Maya. It's a trap. And practically everybody is trapped by this illusion. Very rare for someone to avoid this trap. But it's possible. It's possible. How? By Krishna consciousness. Manmana bhavam tad bhakto. Krishna says, you think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage unto me. Thus you'll come to me. So this is the way to escape. Either we think of Krishna or we think of Maya. If we think of Maya, then we stay in the trap. And some living entities have been in the trap for millions of births. Ourselves. We've been in the trap. So now we got this opportunity, this divine, wonderful opportunity to escape. And that's possible by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And we not only want to escape and go back to Krishna and engage in loving service to Him, but we want to also help others escape, as many as possible. Yeah. And therefore we distribute books. This is the key to escaping from the material world, is reading Srila Prabhupada's books. And if we hear attentively, read Prabhupada's books very attentively, then it sits in the heart, and it purifies the heart, it purifies the mind. Yeah. This is the power of hearing. Shrimvatam svakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana hrudyantasto shavajani virinoti suhitsatam. That Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, the super soul in the hearts of all living entities, and the benefactor of the pure devotee, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who simply relishes his messages, which are in themselves virtuous and properly heard and chanted. So just by hearing nicely, attentively, we become purified. Krishna is pleased, and he cleanses our mind, he cleanses our heart. This is another aspect of the kindness of Krishna. Just hear nicely, and we'll get purified. There was one devotee distributing books, and he was trying to convince this lady to take a book, and she wouldn't take it. And she was adamant; she just wouldn't take it. But he continued. He continued trying to convince her to take the book. She wouldn't take it. But he kept trying, and finally she gave a donation just to get rid of the guy. She got the book. And she read it. And she was so happy upon reading the book. And she was thinking, I'm such a fool. I was trying to reject this book, but this is the most amazing knowledge, most wonderful knowledge I've ever read. So she called up the BBT, Los Angeles. And she said, I don't know the person's name that gave me this book. I gave a donation for. But I wish I did, because this knowledge is the most wonderful knowledge I've ever read. So, of course, we try not to be too pushy, because we don't want people to walk away with a bad impression. Actually, the golden rule in book distribution is everybody walks away with a good impression. Because we've had a bad reputation in the past. People used to hate us. They used to, in the airports, they used to come by with something called clickers. Clickers. They'd go up to a devotee trying to distribute a book, and they'd have these clickers, and they're very loud. They would just, maybe some of you have heard these. Heard these things before? When you were kids, clickers. The kids used to play. They were so loud that it was impossible to distribute a book. The person would have to walk away. And there was a bunch of airport workers and airline people, because we were immature. We didn't know how to distribute books. Sometimes even there would be some unfair or not so nice ways of distributing books. So we got a bad reputation. So we went on actually one of the worst things that we would do. We were all trained up. In the beginning, we were all trained up. Here you get one. Just give it to them, as though it's a free. And then we asked for a donation. And then, I don't want to give a donation. And then we'd take back the free book. We'd give it out like as it's for free. And then I don't want to give a donation. Then we'd take back the free book. This was such a uncomfortable situation, such a well-known situation, that I was at a university one time distributing books at a table, and one professor came to the table, and I was showing him the book, and he said, "Oh, you're Hare Krishna?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh yeah, you're the people that give out the free books, and then when we don't give you a donation, you take back the free book." I said, "Yep, that's us." He didn't take a book. Actually, I think I gave it to him for free, just so he got a good impression. Yeah. So I just went on a huge campaign to change that. Yeah, I mean, I would preach to devotees, because I'm the minister of Bhakti, and I traveled around the world, I don't know, 20 times. Yeah, so wherever I would go, I would express to the devotees, we can't do this anymore. Although this is how we were trained, we had bad training. You know, we were immature. We didn't know. No one was a salesman before they joined, and some devotees just thought of easy ways. You know, so just you get one. You get one. Yeah. So it's decreased a lot. Still, there's some places where they do it, unfortunately. But mostly we do it in a very nice, gentlemanly way, so that people walk away with a good impression. There was one instance where, actually this lady, she was giving this devotee many excuses of why she didn't want to take the book. Remember the one that she was just saying, no, I don't want. She was giving many excuses, but he was just determined to. So when we're distributing books, many people come up with many excuses of why they don't want to take a book. And one of them we experience is that the book is too heavy. I distribute Bhagavad Gitas. I tell them, you know, this book is so heavy, it'll carry you. They like that. They say, oh, all right, I'll take it. And sometimes they say, no, I'm a Christian. I said, that's okay. We're on the same side. Yeah. We're worshiping God, you're worshiping God. We're not trying to change your beliefs. There's always more to learn about God. All right, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Many times they take. Yeah, of course, many times they don't take still. I was distributing books recently, and this lady said, I'm a born-again Christian. But she said she had a Bhagavad Gita. I said, you're not a born-again Christian. Born-again Christians don't open Bhagavad Gita. They don't look at it. So I said, you're an open-minded Christian is what you are. And she said, yeah, I guess I am an open-minded Christian, come to think of it. She liked the Bhagavad Gita. She took my Bhagavad Gita also. She had another version. But she was actually a professor. She was a professor. And I said, well, that's very surprising. You're a scientist. She's a scientist. It's very rare for scientists to even believe in God. She said, yeah, these materialistic scientists, they think if you believe in God, you're stupid. You're pretty much ostracized if you're a scientist and you believe in God. But she was a very, very nice, thoughtful lady. We had a nice conversation about God. So there are some very good Christians out there. And Prabhupada actually said that we're not trying to bring people away from Christianity and make them Hare Krishnas or Hindus. If I came to America with that mentality, then they would tell me to leave. No, you're a Christian, be a good Christian. And these books, they teach you how to be a good Christian. They teach you how to serve God. They teach you more about God. So we're very fortunate to have this knowledge by which you can get closer to Krishna and by which you can help others also and get closer to Krishna. So there's any question or comment? Yes, Dimitri Prabhu.
So, yeah, isn't that the idea that we should actually encourage people to be more serious about their practice when we meet them and they say that, I'm a Christian or I'm a Muslim? And, I remember I was listening to Prabhupada's lecture and he's been asked, what is the difference between a Vaishnava and a pure Christian? And he said that there's no difference.
A Vaishnava and a pure Christian. Yeah, a pure Christian. Be a pure devotee. That's what it means. A pure Christian means a pure devotee. Just wants to serve God, just serve Jesus. Yeah. Yeah, it's rare to find a pure Christian. Of course, it's rare to find a pure Hare Krishna too. To find a pure devotee in the material world, or pure Islam also. It's very difficult to be pure in the material world. Yes, Bhakti Mark.
Just, I need to share this. Is is kind of heavily influenced for how emotionally this affects me, because thanks to Krishna, I was raised in a home that.
You were what?
I was raised on a home.
Yeah.
That we were very always eager to learn. We were strongly encouraged to that. So we always were my brothers and me, my brother, my sister, and myself. We were always chastised about being lazy intellectually, lazy spiritually. So there's black, a white, and many colors in between. So there's no need to fight about others' point of view. We have to assimilate constantly. So that's that kind of seems like the binary mentality that so heavily influenced the Western side of the world. It's honestly hard for me to not judge as stupid. It's just, you are Christian, I am Vaishnava, whatever, all those denominations, we are on the same stuff. They're all going to the same place. I know you know that, we all of us that. So there's no stupid need to fight. That means that you are lazy. I mean, the person that's, oh, but do you, stop, don't you think that there's something that you can learn from me, or I mean, it's finally spiritual laziness that is covered with false pride and
sectarianism.
Yeah, well, blind faith and all those stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was trying to be more assertive on my point and I failed. I'm sorry on my comment. I was. But that's the point. Ultimately, is spiritual laziness. There's so many things to learn. So why are you so lazy about learning? Sorry.
Yeah, we should hear again and again and again. We can't be spiritually lazy. I met one devotee. He had been distributing books for 10 years, and he'd never read the Bhagavad Gita. I couldn't believe it. And to my shock, actually, he said, "Oh, I don't like the Bhagavad Gita." I couldn't. So, yeah, we shouldn't be spiritually. If we want to advance in spiritual life, brahmachari. Yeah, it's inconceivable. So, yeah, we have to be very enthusiastic to hear, to read Bhagavad Gita, read Srimad-Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. And if we're enthusiastic, then Krishna, he'll reveal himself more and more. He'll be enthusiastic to bring to come to us as well. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.